Before I get into this video, I want to point out that yes, this video is going to be much longer than any of my normal videos or videos in the past. Since I actually started growing on this channel, I've gotten countless comments just asking me to do longer videos. I want longer videos. We need longer videos from you, Senpai. Typically, I do like 3 to 4 minute long videos, maybe 5 to 6 minutes maximum, but today I want to try and do a longer video for once, especially for a discussion much like this. I think that's definitely fitting, so go ahead, make sure you tell me in the comment section below which one you prefer, and nevertheless, let's go and get right into today's video. True Spriggans. The Spriggan 12, Zeref's elite army of mages who are built up to be this absolutely unstoppable force that will cause Fairy Tail, in the grand scheme of things, to cower in defeat. However, as we've progressed throughout this arc, the ideology in a way has been completely and utterly squashing, as the Spriggans have all been, for the most part, complete and utter fodder. I mean, like, when it does come down to it, this arc has quite literally been the singular arc that stands out amongst all the other arcs for one-shots. Like, once Alvarez ends, I'm pretty sure that we can all walk away with the common knowledge that so many of the Spriggan 12 were either one-shot or just absolutely destroyed within a fight against the opposing side. Now that I think about it, that actually goes for a grand majority of the Spriggan 12 who have been beaten so far. We've seen basically every single character who has been lost get taken out in a one-shot kind of fashion. For starters, one of the biggest one-shots that we've seen throughout the entirety of the Alvarez arc, and possibly you can even argue by far throughout the entirety of Fairy Tail, has to go down to our man God Serena. Like, bro, he was like in and then he was just out the next chapter. In a way, I kind of feel as if Hero wasted his character in a way. He had just so much potential, in my personal opinion. Like, this man had 8 separate Dragon Slayer Lacrimas. He could have been a Dragon Slayer of absolutely immense power, yet we just saw Aknul get absolutely viciously lay into him with one shot to the abdomen area. By far one of the most renowned one-shots within this entire arc, and debatably within the entirety of Fairy Tail. Another notable one-shot that we've seen come out of Alvarez has to go to Nineheart. Yes, Nineheart. To say the very least, this character was completely and utterly obliterated. Back in chapter 500, when he intervened on the whole fight featuring Natsu, Lucy, Demaria, and Brandish, he made one of the biggest mistakes that we've ever seen throughout the entirety of Fairy Tail. We saw him come in, and for a second there, he looked like he was about to shake things up when we saw Brandish having no effect on him, but then we saw Natsu just plow right into him, and with one punch, he was taken out, and I doubt that we'll be seeing anything from him for a while, if not the entirety of the remainder of this arc. Now, this one is arguably a one-shot. You could say that this is definitely a one-shot, seeing as we really didn't see much out of this character up until this point in time, but then again, you could argue for the opposing side, but when it comes down to it, in my personal opinion, I would not consider this much of a one-shot, as this character was getting just brutally shut down. Nevertheless, we saw Invel get annihilated by Gray after the supposed death of Juvia. Now, I gotta give it to Invel here. For a while there, Invel was definitely putting up a really good fight in the grand scheme of things. We saw him causing Gray and Juvia to fight to the death, where we almost saw the death of both Gray and Juvia via suicide, because neither of them wanted to kill one another. But then, as we know, Juvia went on to save Gray's life through a blood transfusion, one of the saddest scenes throughout the entirety of the Fairy Tail manga, in my personal opinion. But later on, she would go on to just, be saved by Wendy and whatnot. Nevertheless, following the death of Juvia, Gray completely and utterly annihilated Invel. It was one of my favorite one-sided fights throughout the entirety of this arc. However, it was still kind of disappointing to see Invel shut down so badly, especially when he pulled out that ice armor and almost countered Gray, but Gray just got the head on him and he just absolutely destroyed him hands down. Much like the case of Invel, this next one you could really consider to be a one-shot, but then again, you could argue against it being a one-shot. In my personal opinion, I really consider this to be more of like a character getting brutally taken out of the battle, and that has to go to Demaria. Now, Demaria was supposed to be this insanely strong character. She has control over time, uses God Soul takeover magic, and we even saw how ruthless she was when she went without batting an eye and sliced Brandish with a knife for betraying Zeref. But when it comes down to it, Demaria made a big mistake by taking Natsu and Lucy captive. While she was trying to torture Lucy, she was completely shut down by Natsu, who within the blink of an eye absolutely destroyed Demaria. And she even said that what he did was completely inhuman and was only to be expected out of something like a demon, which, as we know, followed with the revelation of e.n.d, one of my favorite parts of this entire arc, hands down. One of the most controversial defeats on the side of the Spriggans definitely goes towards our man Larcade, the son of Zeref and Mavis, and what I like to refer to as the hentai mage. Now, some love him much like myself, others hate him after what we saw with Sting Spriggan, giving him a run for his money and defeating him in the grand scheme of things. This, again, wasn't much of a one-shot in my personal opinion. However, it was still relatively pitiful. I mean, like, let's be honest here. We have to remember that Zeref said that Larcade is capable of beating characters such as Acnologia, and really with that, I highly doubt that Zeref would joke about that. He essentially referred to Larcade as well as a secret weapon of sorts. Along with that, without much effort, Larcade's magic was affecting a good majority of the people on the battlefield, and he was by far one of the most hyped up characters for a good chapter or two there, hands down, but he was absolutely brutally shut down by Sting, and many, including myself at one point, actually tried to argue that this fight was entirely BS in the way that it ended. However, when it does come down to it, Sting could have been considered to be Larcade's counter in regards to his magic. So, as salty as people, much like myself, were, it still had some logic behind the fight, but still, he was brutally put down by Sting. The last major Spriggan that I actually want to touch base with is Irene Belsirion, Urza's mother, whatever you want to refer to her as. Now, as of now, Eileen isn't currently out for the count, but from where we stand within the manga right now, there's no doubt in my mind that Eileen will be receiving an L very, very soon. We've seen Eileen be put through the ringer throughout this fight, but as well, we've kind of found out a lot about what has driven this character to become so vindictive and cruel, so cruel that she has disowned her own daughter. But in due time, I really have no doubt in my mind that Eileen will join the group of Spriggans who were absolutely destroyed by the opposing side. And she's one of the Spriggans who put up the most fight, but still, to think that she's about to be beaten like this after going toe-to-toe with Acnologia at one point, that's pretty crazy to think about. Nevertheless, there have been many more Spriggans who have been put through the ringer during this arc, but I want to actually keep the list narrowed down to some of the major one-shots throughout the entirety of this arc, and really some of the most powerful characters to get destroyed in the grand scheme of things. To say the very least, the Spriggan 12, in my personal opinion, for the most part have been nothing short of a disappointment, and at this current point in time, the only character that I see actually having a chance of taking redemption for all of these insane losses is August, but at the same time, I'm almost certain that he will be taken out as well. Although the Spriggans thus far have been absolutely destroyed, though, with how Zeref introduced the characters and how he presented it back to Mavis back in GMG, when he informed her about him building an empire with insanely strong mages piloting it, it almost feels as if this can't be all of these forged over that span of time, and when it does come down to it, I do believe that Zeref has something up his sleeve that he has yet to reveal to us up until this point in time. Now, a few months back, I actually saw a theory come out of another fairy tale theorist known as Nina2119, where in a video, she actually proposed the idea of some of the Spriggans acting as decoys, and that Zeref, in the grand scheme of things, is holding on to the real Spriggans, who are the most powerful of what we've seen out of the Spriggans. With this, she pointed out the original silhouette that was actually shown of the Spriggan 12, and when you look at it and compare it to all of the known figures of the Spriggan 12, there are just two that really don't match any of the known Spriggans. Thus far, with the performance of the Spriggans and knowing how Zeref generally is, I definitely could consider this to be a possibility in the grand scheme of things. And as for who the decoys are, well, if we take a look at the original silhouette, I've actually boxed in the two characters that don't look like any of the known Spriggan 12. As far as the decoys go, I'd like to think one would be Nineheart, seeing as we can't really make out any of the bodies to be his, and he was by far one of the most fodder when it comes to the Spriggans. And as for the second one, that's a real shot in the dark right there. We have to as well keep in mind that Nineheart was technically one of Eileen's enchantments. Therefore, you could really try and argue that he being one of her enchantments was a decoy to begin with in regards to the Spriggans. But to be completely honest as well, that would make sense as to why he was literally punched once by Natsu and completely taken out of the war and was completely and utterly fodder in that fight. But with the idea in mind, I question why Zeref has held on to these Spriggans thus far in the war. In the case that these are the strongest of the Spriggan 12, like I'm assuming they would be, then why wouldn't have Zeref just sent them out along with the other Spriggans and completely just kind of voided the idea of having decoys? Well, I do have a possible theory as to why he held off on these Spriggans. So, if they're as powerful as I do believe that they could be, Zeref may have actually held back on them simply because he knew the war would be over really quick if they were to fight, and he wanted to keep the war going. Now, you're probably wondering what logical sense it would make for him to want to draw out a war like this when he had mages strong enough to take out everybody within the arc. Well, as much as this theory doesn't really make much sense, maybe he had faith in Natsu actually putting an end to his existence once and for all. Now, Zeref has been immortal for over 400 years, and we've seen him make some really risky plays within this war, to say the very least. Example being when he was hunted down by Natsu and allowed for a one-on-one fight to take place between the two, even though he had hundreds of thousands of troops at his beck and call, and even Invel on his side as well. Back at Tenro, we can as well recall Zeref actually saying that Natsu was not strong enough yet during their encounter to kill him. Maybe he knew that attacking Fairy Tail in the grand scheme of things would lead him in return to attacking Natsu, and if Natsu was strong enough, or maybe was even capable of tapping into the power of E.n.d, he would have actually been able to putting an end to Zeref's life. So with that in mind, with Zeref being knowledgeable of the hidden Spriggans' powers, he reprimanded them from joining in the war with a goal of dying himself. There are flaws with this reasoning, however, seeing as Natsu did fail to kill Zeref with the remainder of Ignil's power, which Zeref obviously was not expecting in the grand scheme of things, and at this point, the only thing that's really going for Zeref would be E.n.d, who was created by the sole reason for slaying Zeref. Now, this could be a reason why we haven't seen the hidden Spriggans, if there are any. However, I still don't see it to be a likely anecdote to all the flaws with this theory. But when it does come down to it, with how much of a disappointment I've seen the Spriggans to be thus far, I'm really hoping that if this theory does prove to be true, and there are hidden Spriggans that essentially are Zeref's secret weapons within this war, I'm really hoping that we can expect a lot out of them with the strength and whatnot. What would be really cool is if these remaining Spriggans are actually the strongest of the Spriggans, simply because they are made up of some of Zeref's more recent creations from Etherion, or essentially Etherion demons, much like Natsu and the Tartarus demons themselves. Now, I don't know how likely this is, but if that were to be the case, then we can look forward to a lot in regards to these characters, if they are any. I'm really hoping, though, that in the grand scheme of things, that what we've seen thus far isn't all that we have in store for us in regards to the Spriggan 12, because if that's the case, then in a way I could very easily say that the Spriggan 12 have been extraordinarily pitiful. This is really a way, in my personal opinion, for Zeref and Alvarez to get a redemption in a way, and possibly even an edge on Fairy Tail within this war. Nevertheless, what do you guys think about this theory? Is it possible that Zeref has secret weapons of sorts in the form of Spriggans that we are yet to see, and that some of the Spriggans could have even been decoys at this current point in time? Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Peace.